Morning, Glory America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt live from Studio North. Good morning to you. Get up, get going, get out of bed. I have to begin the day with a terrible story out of Thailand where a deranged policeman charged with methamphetamine use and possession broke into and killed 31 people at a child daycare center. And I tell you that only to remind you to hug your kids today before you go out. The world is a very, very terrible place sometimes. That's a very, very terrible story. President Biden and Governor Ron DeSantis got together in Florida yesterday, pledging to help residents fully recover. Good bipartisan moment as many people suffer through an extraordinary aftermath of a storm, the costs and consequences of which in lives and in livelihoods and in property just keeps going higher and higher. On top of that comes the announcement from OPEC Plus. It's not just our Gulf state allies and friends. It's Iran, it's Russia, it's Venezuela. OPEC Plus is cutting oil production. The consequence of that is, of course, rising gas prices here. President Biden moved to release more of our Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is truly a bad idea. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is for war, not for presidential, not for off-year elections. That's why he's doing it, but it's not going to help. It's just not going to help. U.S. gasoline prices follow crude higher, according to the New York Times. Gas prices rose for a 15th consecutive day on Wednesday, propelled by the turnaround in crude oil prices. The Wall Street Journal headline, U.S. gasoline prices are climbing again and may get worse. Maintenance at fuel-making plants, more demand for gasoline, and tight fuel supplies have contributed to a run of increasing gasoline prices. A gallon of regular averaged about $3.83 on Wednesday. Today is Thursday, so expect it to be more expensive. I'm saying we're going to get to $4 gas by the end of next week and probably $5 gas by the election. It's just a question of supply and demand. And remember that the Biden administration has done everything they can to make us go away from gasoline, so we cannot quickly ramp up production, whether it's the Keystone XL pipeline that would have brought crude oil from Canada to our country. The world oil supply is one. There's only one world oil supply. And if you take a supply out of it, if you deter production in the United States, we peaked at, I think, 14,800,000 barrels of production in January of 2020. A day. In January 2020, of course, COVID hits, and then production goes down as everything is shuttered by the U.S. government. Oil production has not returned to pre-pandemic levels, not even close, and that's because, in part, Joe Biden has refused to accelerate every effort to clear the way, and in fact, Democrats are opposed to additional oil and gas production. So you get, Joe Biden, the price rise at the pump is on Joe Biden. Every time you fill up at the pump, understand the Donald Trump approach and the Joe Biden approach could not be more different. Trump, on one hand, says, pump everywhere, pump everything, pump as much as you can, as fast as you can. Joe Biden is, let's not really put those leases out in Alaska. And some of the Texas leases pulled that back. And, we got additional regulatory hurdles to clear. The EPA is worried about 404 permits. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is worried about the sage grouse. We don't really like Texas, Gulf. What's holding back U.S. production? That's the story in Forbes from March of this year. There's a lot. And there's a lot that Joe Biden hasn't done. As a consequence of this, the WTO, the World Trade Organization, announced yesterday they see a slowdown in global trade, pointing to a possible recession. If that's all they see, they're not looking very hard because we're in a recession. It's going to get worse. Job loss is going to accelerate. Even as stagflation takes over. It is the Carter economy, brought to you by Joe Biden, who remembers it well and is doing everything he remembers Jimmy Carter doing. Turmoil continues in Iran, where another murder, this time of a girl 16, has sparked additional furious protests. In Ukraine, they're driving on the Crimea. Ukraine could recapture Crimea as fleeing Russians continue to flounder, according to the Telegraph this morning. Wall Street Journal adding Ukraine's new offensive is fueled by captured Russian weapons. So what we did in Afghanistan, the Russians have done in their invaded territories of Ukraine, which is leave billions of dollars in materiel, including Soviet-era artillery shells, which the Ukrainians were out of and nobody's making anymore. So the Russians left them behind handily so they could be turned around and turned on. That's a civil war kind of thing. That used to happen in the Civil War. You would overrun The Union forces would overrun the Confederate lines and then turn the Confederate cannons on the fleeing Confederates. That I just haven't seen that in war in a long, long time. The contrary point of view has come from the Washington Post. A more strategic Russian retreat signals long fight ahead in Kherson. And it's a very in-depth look at whether or not the Russians are going to give up Kherson, in which is the only water supply plant for the Crimean Peninsula. Highly unlikely they'll give it up easily. The understandingwar.org website gives you the most granular report on it. They do not declare one way or the other whether or not Ukraine will continue forward, but they are optimistic about additional gains in the north. Just as in the south, it's getting tough. Chechen warlord Ramzan Kadyrov was promoted to general by Putin. So a butcher promotes a butcher. Liz Truss, you heard part of this yesterday when I broadcast it live during the first hour of my show, channels Margaret Thatcher in a vow to defeat enemies of enterprise holding Britain back. She's going full Thatcher, good for her. U.S. aims to turn Taiwan into a giant weapons depot, according to the New York Times. That is a great thing indeed, a wonderful thing. Let's just hope it happens. Also want to let you know that Karl Rove is out with his assessment of the Senate, the race for the Senate, which I did with Rick Scott yesterday. Karl's assessment in the Wall Street Journal, he says 51-49 GOP is likeliest result. Other plausible scenarios are 50-50 Senate or 51-49 Democrat. A 52-48 Senate either way is possible. Look, I do not know how Republicans lose ground with gas prices going up, because the one thing people collide with every single day is the cost of putting food on the table, the cost of driving to work. It's the one thing that they have to deal with every single day. If you're on your way to work right now, you're looking at that. Fill up your car, because it's going to be more expensive to fill it up this weekend. Senator, where do we find you today?
Good morning, Hugh. It's good to be on with you. Haven't been to quite as many places as the man in black, but it's definitely a busy month for me and a lot of my fellow senators who are racing around the country campaigning for our friends in the Senate and our soon-to-be fellow senators, people like J.D. Vance and Ted Budd, Herschel Walker, Blake Masters, Adam Laxalt, and other places as well.
Have you been into Colorado with Joe O'Dea?
I was with Joe last week, in fact, and Joe's another one who's going to be another senator come January. I think the people of Colorado are sick and tired of $4 a gallon gas and leading the country in car thefts of all things. Joe is going to be a clear-eyed, common sense leader for the people of Colorado in the Senate.
Let's go to the price of gas. This is going to be, along with the price of groceries, what determines the red wave, how big it is. There's going to be a red wave. It's just how big is it? It is now at $3.89 a gallon on average. In California, it's above $6. Adam Laxalt cut a Facebook ad at a gas station in Reno, $6.99 a gallon in Nevada, Tom Cotton. That's got to be killing Democratic hopes.
Yeah, Hugh, you see in some of all across the country, gas is going up. Remember, this is not an accident. It's not bad luck by Joe Biden. This is decline by design. The Democrats want high gas prices because they want to get you off of or out of your big gas guzzling SUV or your terrible minivan for all your children, and to take electric vehicles, which, remember, are not really electric vehicles. They're coal-powered vehicles or nuclear-powered vehicles or natural gas-powered vehicles. And in some critical states, it's even worse than it is nationally. Gas in Arkansas is about $3.20, whereas you said in Nevada, it's $5, $6, $7 a gallon. In Washington State, where Tiffany Smiley is going to beat Patty Murray, it's over $5 a gallon as well. When I was in Colorado last week, before much of the recent increase, it was already inching up over $4 in a lot of states. And the American people aren't just suffering from that pain at the pump. They know that the Democratic Party is intentionally inflicting this pain on them. They want gas prices to be high because they want to force everyone out of their traditional internal combustion engine vehicles and onto mass transit or walking or spending $60,000 for an electric vehicle.
Senator Cotton, I will explain after the break why the idea that just handing out leases doesn't do a thing for oil production. Do you want to take a crack at explaining why this is a direct result of Biden administration policies? We were at 14.3 million barrels of oil per day in January of 2020. We're not even close to that now. What happened? Why is Joe Biden not doing his job on gasoline prices?
Joe Biden happened, Hugh. And Hugh, again, I would even dispute somewhat the premise of your question. Joe Biden is doing the job that he thinks he should do, that the Democratic Party thinks they should do. They want gas to be this high. The Democrats are always saying that never forget January 6th. Yeah, I remember that on January 6th, gas was at $2.40 a gallon. It was at $2.40 a gallon because for 4 years we had an administration that understood that American energy production, and specifically fossil fuels, natural gas, oil, and coal, literally power our economy. But the Democrats are waging a war against fossil fuels, and they've been doing it from the very beginning. And it's not just leases, as you say, although that's an important part. There's no single thing they have done to strangle American energy production. It's death by 1,000 cuts. So it's cutting in leases and cutting permitting, or not allowing the kind of construction we need for new refineries. Waging a campaign through corporate America and Wall Street to starve oil and gas and coal companies from the investments they need to continue to grow and try to produce more energy. This is all part of the campaign by the Democratic Party to so-called transition away from fossil fuels, which is a fool's errand. It is a recipe for poverty and misery in America. And the American people know that. They can see it from the Democrats' rhetoric. I mean, Joe Biden in the campaign promised that he was going to eliminate fossil fuels. This is not a surprise. It's not an accident. This is something the Democratic Party has intentionally inflicted on America.
Now, I want to talk about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The president has ordered the release of still more of our Strategic Petroleum Reserve. One of my friends online, Jerry Hendricks, tells me, look, no one is talking about the damage being done to the salt domes where the oil is stored by the massive drawdown. We may actually have to move to a new storage facility because of the steepness of this drawdown and the resulting calving of the salt domes. I just can't believe the president is getting away with so naked a political stunt as taking Strategic Petroleum out to buoy Democrats' hopes, but the price rises are too high. Nevertheless, it ought not to go unrebuked.
No, it ought not, and it has not, and it will not. And that's one of the things that we'll look into in conducting oversight hearings when we win back control of the Congress, because it is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. It's not the political petroleum reserve. That was created years ago for something like, the Arab oil embargo back in the days when we were much more dependent on foreign oil than we have since become. Or, for instance, if you had a hurricane the size of Ian hit not Florida, but hit the Gulf Coast and take out refining capacity for the country. It wasn't designed to help the Democrats deal with the short-term political problems their own policies have created. Look, they want to do this. They want gas prices to be $5, $6, $7 a gallon. They just don't want it to happen in an October for an election year. So even Joe Biden realizes this is politically inconvenient. And in addition to the engineering problems it creates, as Jerry has written online, it also just leaves us vulnerable. If we do have such a hurricane. If you do have other reasons why oil production is dramatically affected here in America or around the world. And also, we're going to have to refill it some days. And if Joe Biden keeps the price of oil at $100 a barrel, where it's approaching today or higher, it's going to cost billions of dollars to the taxpayer, since much of the oil is in there at a much lower price.
So, Senator, now I want to switch to crime, because last night at 9:30 at the corner of 9th and Constitution, not far from where you walk and park every day, another carjacking, the second in the last month at that corner. Washington, D.C. has become unsafe to drive in. Does anybody notice this? And this is not news to the people of Philadelphia, of Cleveland, of Los Angeles, that downtown urban centers are violent. But D.C. typically has been safer because of the layering of various forms of law enforcement. Are you aware of this?
Unfortunately, I am aware, as are many other people who work at the Capitol, especially the young men and women who work nearby and have to walk to and from their apartments. I always advise my new interns anytime they come in that they have to be aware of their physical surroundings. Sadly, when I started in the Congress or Senate 8 years ago, I guess, that was not part of my routine briefing. But given the crime that we've seen in Washington, like almost every other large Democratic-run city, then yes, it's something that you have to be very mindful of. And remember, this again is what the Democrats' policies obviously and naturally have led to. Look in Wisconsin, you have Mandela Barnes, the Democratic nominee for Senate, who wants to eliminate the bail system. That would mean you get arrested, even for serious and violent crimes, and you're immediately put back on the street to intimidate your witnesses or commit more crimes, like the Waukesha parade mass murderer, or John Fetterman in Pennsylvania, who said that he'd like to release half or a third of all prisoners. And Hugh, as a Cleveland sports fan, just think about this: when John Fetterman was asked what was the one thing you could do if you could wave a magic wand, it wasn't something like reduce inflation or stop the opioid crisis in Pennsylvania. It wasn't even, find the Pittsburgh Steelers a quarterback so they could get back to the playoffs. It was eliminate long sentences for murderers. That's
right.
What John Fetterman wants to do. And remember, Hugh, these are not Democrats who are out of the Democratic mainstream, who are fringe figures. This is who the Democratic Party chose to represent them in two of the most competitive Senate races in America.
We got a minute. We got a minute left. Herschel Walker is coming up at the bottom of the hour. Raphael Warnock, you've served side by side with him. Herschel's under attack for a variety of reasons. I'll talk to him about that. But what do you make of Raphael Warnock? Is he the most left-wing member of the Senate right now?
Well, Herschel Walker is under attack for one reason, Hugh, and it's because he's going to beat Raphael Warnock, and they're desperate to try to find any way to stop that from happening. Now, Senator Warnock is a down-the-line vote for Joe Biden. He votes for Joe Biden almost 100% of the time. A vote for Raphael Warnock in Georgia is a vote for Joe Biden and the Democrats' far-left agenda. That's why Herschel Walker is going to win next month.
Senator Tom Cotton, always a pleasure. Keep going everywhere, man. I know you're working hard, and I appreciate it, Senator. Follow him on Twitter. Send Tom Cotton. Follow me in the next segment. To shock Democrats is out of the state of New York. Lee Zeldin, the Republican member of Congress who is running against the accidental governor, Kathy Hochul, is down by 2 points, according to Trafalgar, who polled from September 30th until October the 3rd. Hochul up 2. Now, remind you that Siena, mid-month, said Hochul was up by 17 points. So Trafalgar says Lee Zeldin is only behind by 2. That's a statistically insignificant amount in a poll that is serious. Trafalgar, widely regarded as the most accurate over the last 4 years of all the pollsters, they say it's a dead heat in New York State. I'll tell you why it's a dead heat in New York State. I will remind you why it's a dead heat in New York State. In New York State, property taxes are driving people out of the houses that they have long owned. When I drove with the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt this year from Maine, Midcoast, Maine, we drove out to the Chautauqua, the original Chautauqua in Western New York. It takes about 11 hours. And along the way, I just kept noticing signs of disrepair along the Empire State Freeway, the 90, where you've got service center after service center closed. They're under construction. Nothing's going on. Then I get to Chautauqua, and I talk to people who have owned their homes at Chautauqua for generation after generation, fourth, fifth generation homeowners in Chautauqua. It's a summer retreat, and they can't afford it. Joined now by Herschel Walker, candidate for Senate in Georgia. Good morning, Herschel. Welcome back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Hello there. How you doing?
I'm good. I want to begin, Herschel. The Daily Beast has updated the story about your paying for a woman's abortion. The anonymous woman has now also alleged that she had a child by you. Your response?
I'll say the same thing I said, that, I know this is untrue. I know it's untrue, and they keep telling me things like that, and it's totally, totally untrue. And I'm not sure why that will be told. I know nothing about any woman having an abortion, and so they can keep coming at me like that, and they're doing it because they want to distract people. I know that because I've already been forgiven, and if I've been forgiven, why in the world will I not be forgiven of something like that? And I'm not saying being forgiven. Go ahead.
Is there anything you need to be forgiven for vis-a-vis a woman whose name we do not know? Do you know who this woman is, and do you need to be forgiven?
Well, that's what's so funny. And I'm saying I've been forgiven because of all the things I did when I went to the thing with my ex-wife and all that, and things I did I don't know how many years ago that I wrote in my book. I said, guys, I wasn't perfect. I had my problem with mental health, and I hate that I've been born again, but I have a new life, and I've been moving forward, and if that had happened, I would have said it because there's nothing to be ashamed of there. People have done that, but I know nothing about it. And if I knew about it, I would be honest and talk about it. But I know nothing about that.
Herschel, it was not on my question set until they re-upped the story this morning and added to it a new allegation. So just to put a bow on it, do you have any idea who this alleged former lover of yours is who says you paid for an abortion and fathered a child? Any idea whatsoever?
I have no idea at all, and that's the problem. Is when they said I had the kids that I was hiding, a lot of people don't know that this same reporter found out that this was not true. Never wrote a retraction. Never said anything. They just let it go and went on. And in this case here, they're saying, "Oh, some alleged woman," and now it's somebody that you used to know and you know so well, and this and that. They're saying it, and I said, "Yeah, they can say a lot of things, but I know for a fact no one has ever told me or I paid for an abortion, and that never happened."
All right, I'm going to move on. That's a complete denial, and we'll wait for the Daily Beast. No one else has confirmed the story, but I saw it move 5 hours ago. Someone asked you. I want to talk about your son, Christian Walker.
Yeah.
This has got to be painful for everyone in your family, but what do you say to Christian about these videos he's released, these texts he's put
I
out?
say that I love Christian. I love him with all my heart. I always have, always will. And I love and I hate to say little boy. I keep saying little boy. He's not a little boy.
We lost you there, Herschel. Yeah, your phone just clicked out on us when you're. We'll get you back. He is talking about his son Christian Walker, but we lost. He's on a cell phone, obviously, and it dropped. And he was wanting. I want to hear what he has to say about the Christian Walker tweets. So we'll stand by for a little bit more of Herschel. His website, by the way, is teamherschel.com. teamherschel.com, HERSCHEL.com, teamherschel.com. And he's back. So, Herschel, you were talking about Christian and that you love him very much.
Yes, I love him very much, and I will always love him. And as I was just saying, the left seem to want to keep bringing up my past, and they don't realize like bringing up my past like trying to rob my old house. I don't live there anymore.
Huh.
I've moved on, and my life has moved on, and now I'm out doing something else, and I think they're not. But I've always loved Christian, and I think everybody knows that. I think they've seen me talk a lot about this little boy, and I love him so much.
Have you sat down with him during the campaign?
No, I haven't. I haven't sat down with him since the story came out about me having other kids. I haven't sat down at all then. And that's what I told everyone. I said, guys, I haven't sat down with Christian since he started believing. I think and he started believing that I had other kids, never told him about it. And I think he was extremely hurt from that. And that was totally not true. And that's what was so sad. And we haven't talked about it. And when this came out, and that's why I said I love him. I love Christian. I love him with all my heart. And when he's a young man now. And so when he's ready, I'm here. He can talk to me.
Now, I want to close this up, but I want to make sure I understand. When you say it's totally not true that you had children by other than his mother, what are you referring to?
No, I'm saying it's not true when they talked about me paying for someone abortion. And so when they talk about me paying for someone abortion, that is not true. And all the stuff that is coming out is not true. And I'm not sure what Christian is talking about, because he said some things, and I just said that I love Christian. I'm not going to debate, talk about that, in public, because I need to know exactly what he's talking about or what he's upset about with me, and everything.
All right, so let's go to the campaign. I think that statement is as far as the audience needs to go. I know that Rick Scott believes you're going to win. He told me that yesterday. Tom Cotton just told me you're going to win in Georgia. What have these charges done, if anything, to the momentum for Team Herschel on the road?
Well, I'm still doing what I was doing. I'm still getting the people out. and the people have seen it. And you know, it's one thing somebody told me yesterday that I never heard the statement before. They said, Herschel, now you know about the October surprise. And I said, I have never heard of that statement before. They said, yeah, in October, right before you get ready to go to the election, they come up with an October surprise for you. And I said, I never heard of that, but I said, I'm going to win this election, and my crowd is still coming out. And I think that's what everyone want to talk about. I mean to say all the reporters want to talk about this, but the people in the audience seem to, they want to talk about everything else. And I think
Yeah,
that's
Herschel, that might be part of your appeal. I was raised on October surprises.
no,
Lyndon Johnson stopping the bombing of North Korea a month before the election, George W. Bush's ancient DUI being dropped a week before the election that made a runaway close. October surprises. If I had tattoos, it would be tattooed on me somewhere. So it is. You are clearly not a politician.
no, I'm not. I'm not a politician. So when somebody told me that statement, I had no clue what they were talking about. Right now, I believe in America. Right now, I believe in the Georgia people. Right now, we need to know and people see it right now. Inflation is starting to go up again. Gas prices starting to go up again. Right now, this border is wide open, getting worse. Halloween is right around the corner. They're dressing fentanyl up to look like candy. I want all the parents to be vigilant about that. That's what they left don't want to talk about. Well, I'm talking about that because,
So,
as I said, if they continue to try to hurt me by bringing up my past, it's like robbing my old house. I don't live there anymore.
So, Herschel, let's close by talking about Pastor Warnick. I am amazed. I stayed away from the story about the domestic violence against his ex-wife or wife. I can't remember who he ran over, but I didn't do that when he ran in the runoff. It's just not what I do on the show. Are you getting hit by a double standard in the media where the pastor gets a pass on his double salary and you get hammered on anonymous allegations like this? Is it a double standard, and do Georgians know that?
Well, I don't think Georgians know that, but that's not something I really bring up because I said it yesterday to someone who asked the same question. I said, right now the people want to know what I'm going to be as a senator, and the allegations. When you say allegations, unless they're true, unless I know they're true, I don't talk about it because I think it's unfair to the senator. I want to talk about his record. Right now, his record is terrible. His voting is terrible for Georgia. And then, he's done this in less than 2 years, and they asked him for 6 more years. And my question is, can we put up with this for 6 more years? I'm saying, no, we can't. We cannot continue to go like this for 6 more years.
So, Herschel Walker, to close, teamherschel.com is your website. How's the money supply as you go into the last 4 weeks here?
Well, I tell you what, we're hanging in there. Senator Warnock, I think everyone saw he raised over $20-something million. I think at the end of the run. But what was so strange is I think only 8% of it was from Georgia. The rest was some from California and New York, and we're doing well. We're putting our numbers out, and I think we'll still be in the top 3 fundraisers on the Republican side. And so we're out raising our money, and we're going to keep moving forward. And I'm going to go out and represent the Georgia people because right now people are hurting with this border wide open, with crime the way it is, with this inflation is terrible right now. I got to keep doing my job, keep getting out, meeting the people, saying my message, so the people can see who I am. They can see my heart. They can see I'm here for them, that I will always be here for them, and I'm going to fight for them.
TeamHerschel.com if you want to be part of Herschel Walker's successful run for the Senate. I appreciate your coming on this morning, Herschel, in the middle of the storm and answering the questions straight up and directly. I appreciate it. Keep coming back.
Well, thank you, and we're going to win this thing. We just got to stay together. Don't let anyone divide us. We got to stay together, and let's get this state of Georgia back together. Let's get this country back together. And the only way we can do that is in October. Everyone get out and vote. And they vote for people that believe in this country. They vote for Herschel Walker. They believe in this country. They believe in each other. And we're going to get this done.
Thank you, Herschel. Early voting is going, I don't know when it starts in Georgia, but it starts in October. Make sure you get out there and vote as soon as you can. Don't let your vote not get counted because you delay. Go and vote.